Welcome, Jordana. I
Thank you.
have you here. You are an active member of our community, and here we are trying to, start a conversation on understanding each other uh, through the lens of what we have, what is a major part of our identities, the jobs we do, the professions, the engagements that we lend our energies to, and the religions that we associate with, we identify with. So, on that note, I want to get you started by introducing yourself a little and telling us about, in this context, how do you want to, get this started?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, and I love what you're doing, and it's so important. Um, so my name is Jordana Horn Gordon, and I guess I am right now at this point in my life. I am probably most well known for having 6 children. That is probably my claim to fame, because when you have 6 children, mine range in age from 5 to 17. So we're in 4 different schools right now. And when you have this many kids, you have a wider range of acquaintances, activities, and community involvement. So in my professional life, I've trained to be a lawyer, but I stopped practicing law officially right around 17 years ago, right around when I had my first son, coincidentally enough. Before that, I had been a journalist, and I went back to journalism after the birth of my first son. I've been all over the map. I've been a pretty active freelance writer for a while. For a few years, I was the New York bureau chief of the Jerusalem Post, which is Israel's main English language newspaper, covering the United Nations and other American subjects of interest to an Israeli English readership, which was a lot for one person. Because when I said bureau chief, that means that it's really just you, and you don't have a staff or anything. So it's a lot like being the mother of 6
Thanks
children.
for demystifying that for us.
Yeah, my pleasure. It sounds a lot better though, bureau chief. And at the moment, I am a freelancer. I do most of my work for a Jewish parenting website, and I have a podcast called Call Your Mother, where we interview people about parenting and about being Jewish. Being Jewish is a large part of my life, and always has been. And it's very important to me to raise my children Jewish, but yet it's also important to me to raise them as Jews within the larger context of being involved in American life. Hanukkah is an 8-day-long festival that we celebrate. It usually we go by the lunar calendar in Judaism, so there's no set date. It's not like Christmas that's always starting on Christmas Eve on the 24th of December. So it floats. So generally, it can be as early as the end of November and as late as the end of December. But it floats around this season, and it's known colloquially as the Festival of Lights. A little quick backgrounder. Okay, so way back, many centuries ago, so this is around the 2nd century, we're talking about in the land of what is now Israel, there were Jews living there, and there was a Syrian Greek king, Antiochus, who came in and said, you know something, I'm really not okay with Jews and their weird ways. I don't like this whole thing that they have to eat in a certain way by keeping kosher. I don't like it that they won't work 1 day a week, on their Sabbath. I would really like them to assimilate into the Syrian Greek culture. So he expressed those things and there was pushback, and he said, okay, well, now we're going to go hardcore. Now we're going to make some laws that say that you cannot keep kosher. You cannot observe the Sabbath. You cannot circumcise male baby, like all of these things that differentiate Jews from the rest of the population. So there were many who said, okay, fine, I'd rather not die. I'm going to go along with whatever you tell me to do. And then there was a band of people who, there's a lot of discussion now, like, were they zealots? Were they radicals, or were they, for the purposes of this story, we're going to say that there was a band of people who said, no, we're going to keep being Jewish. We're going to keep being Jewish in secret if we have to, but we're also going to fight against this army. So in the meantime, the Syrian Greeks took over. At the time, there was only one temple in Jerusalem for the whole Jewish people. And they desecrated the temple. They, brought in pigs and idols and did sacrifices. And so this really, it didn't do anything to ease tension. No. So basically push came to shove, and there was a rebellion led by this band of people who were really not particularly good at fighting. They were, a group of shepherds and, local craftsmen and educators, but they knew the terrain and they did a lot of surprise attacks. And at the end of the day, they did, in fact, push the Syrian Greek king out of the territory. But so the punchline of the story is when they went back into the temple was desecrated. Everybody got together and started cleaning it up. But they had a holy, a 7-branched lamp, a menorah, and they only had enough oil that had been sanctified to use. It would only last one day, but it took 8 days to make the oil. So they said, okay, well, let's just use it. And they used it, and this oil that was supposed to only last for one night, lasted for 8. So now we celebrate Hanukkah for 8 nights. And in America at large, I think that Hanukkah is often seen as like the Jewish Christmas because A, it comes at the same time of year as Christmas usually, and B, because Jewish people, in order to keep their children from feeling bad that they did not celebrate Christmas, have adopted the custom of giving gifts every night of Hanukkah. That is not like a religious thing, that is
it Chanukkah or Hanukkah?
Okay, so it's Hanukkah. It's actually, if you say it in Hebrew, it's like Hanukkah, like you're, for lack of a better way of putting it, like you're hawking a loogie. So that doesn't translate very well. So often you'll see it written as CH,
okay,
sometimes, or just H, because it's transliteration from the Hebrew. So there's no one universal spelling. You can spell it about 1 billion different ways and still be correct. But
and still pronounce it Hanukkah, ideally,
correct,
right?
Correct.
The nasal sound, if you could bring it there, that would be great.
Right. But Hanukkah is
good.
Hanukkah works.
So since you said 8 days, so that can we call it a candelabra, right?
Sure. Yes.
The legendary candelabra. It's supposed to have 8 or 9 or 7 or what? How many?
Right. Okay. So the one back in the days of the temple, this is like really esoteric trivia, like you're never going to need to know this. The one in the days of the temple was 7, a 7-branched candelabra. But now, because of the oil lasting 8 days, ours has 8 branches and then 1 extra branch. So the 1 extra branch is for a candle that we call the shamash. It's the helper candle. So that 1 candle lights the others. So every night of the festival, we say the blessings and we light 1 candle per night. So in the first night, you have the shamash, it lights the 1. Then the second night, shamash 2. So the shamash doesn't count for the purposes of the total. Yeah, but at the end you have the whole full thing lit.
So typically now you will find a candelabra with 9 branches. And I think that makes for a beautiful geometry also in a way, right? 1 in the center and 4 on either sides. Why not? So that's good. So now describe to me a typical Hanukkah day. Like, when you say, okay, Hanukkah starts, how does your house?
So in Judaism, all holidays begin at sunset the night before. So, so in other words, today's the last day of Hanukkah. Nobody's really going to be doing anything today, because all the festivities happen at night for Hanukkah, especially because it's the festival of lights. So usually the sun goes down, you light the candles. Some of the things we do are we eat. Another tribute to this idea of the oil in the temple is that we eat fried foods. So we eat fried latkes, which are fried potato pancakes, which are delicious. And that's why I'm wearing leggings today rather than any pants that button, because this is an 8-day holiday and it is not healthy. So you have these potato pancakes, and then also another big hit are these donuts that are fried in oil that are called sufganiyot in Hebrew, that are jelly filled, but it's gone out of control. But if you go to Israel during Hanukkah, every single bakery that you see will be full of these donuts they're beyond description. Like some of them they come with little syringes of caramel that you can eject just so the donut won't get mushy. I mean, this is a leggings holiday. This is not a button your pants holiday. So you eat these foods. There's a spinning top called a Dreidel. And that's a game that we play. And it's a spinning top that has 4 sides, and like one side means that you have like a pot that you can use either money or nuts or, candy or whatever. And so you spin, right, anything. And so you spin the top, and then it's like a gambling for children, I guess, is what it is. So we play, and then because we're in America, we give these, it's usually, you give a gift each night. But that's really for no other reason other than that we live in,
and we live in a capitalist world.
About Christmas.
I know.
So that's really it. And it's not a formal thing. There are other Jewish holidays, like if you're talking about like Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, or Yom Kippur, like those are very intense, serious, like you spend the day in synagogue, you spend the day praying, or even Passover. There's this whole elaborate meal with different steps and like lots of different things that you have to do. This is a very easy holiday. You say the blessings over the candles, and maybe depending on your degree of knowledge, you sing a song or two, and that's really it. It's really just more about family, and it's more about the idea of that we should be a light in the darkness, because this holiday happens at the darkest time of year. For me, that has great resonance, and really never more resonance than this year, when we're all going through this pandemic, and so much suffering. It was just such a nice thing, each one of these nights, to have this island in time where you can see your family's faces over the candlelight. Just lovely.
Well, since the devil is in the details, and the audience that I know I want definitely, this messaging to go out to is our children who are growing up in communities of diverse viewpoints and religions and so on. So I really want them to appreciate the nuances of every religious festival and so on. And so when you said that you start by lighting a candle, the day one, do you light only one candle or the entire set of candles?
Right. So that's a very good question, actually. And that's one that our rabbis in fact, like had a whole argument about, because there are two schools of thought. There was one school of thought that said, well, why don't you light the whole thing and then take away one candle per night? And the other school of thought said, no, you should add one candle per night. So, and the school of thought that said you should add one candle per night won, because the idea is we need more light in the world, not less. You know, we need more sources of warmth, sources of happiness, and sources of hope. So with each day, as it goes on, that you get more and more light, you know, the symbolism of that is something that resonates. So, but that wasn't, but you already hit on a rabbinical argument. So, you know, that's pretty good.
I never intended to, but hey, you know, but as I said, you know, because when our children and when we're talking to our children, it is these very tangible details that that bring home the entire festivity for them, right?
Yeah.
Because one thing to say world peace and we love and all that, but until we actually sit down and do stuff, it really identifies for them what this festival is about. And coincidentally, my oldest child started preschool at a Jewish preschool in Brooklyn. And so the dreidel has been a part of our household forever. And I have some beautiful neighbors who very little kid. And, you know, so she made us some, they were going to offer us some latkes, but they ran out of them. So instead, the little 2-year-old, she painted us some beautiful cookies and they dropped for us. So this is a dreidel cookie that she gave us and a star and so on. So that was so sweet. So which brings me to the point, what is the role of, you know, your non-Jewish community, if any? Like, should we be saying Happy Hanukkah to you? Can we be dropping gifts to you? Can we expect some goodies from you in terms of or something? So tell us about that.
So I would say certainly Happy Hanukkah is such a nice thing to hear and to say. And it's especially appreciated. And anyone who's a member of a minority community will understand and appreciate that, like, being seen is appreciated for who you are. You know, and so and it's always a thing where I know that for me, for my children, we've always had the discussion of, well, when someone comes up to you and says, Merry Christmas, you know, but I mean, so this discussion was prompted because once when my daughter was maybe 2 years old, someone said, Merry Christmas to her. And she said, oh, thank you, but I'm on Team Hanukkah. and I'm like, it's not a team that, you know, I said, you can never be offended if someone is trying to share joy from, you know, from their vantage point. Happy Hanukkah is lovely. I would say that, you know, it's not, so we have another holiday coming up in March. So you can mark it on your calendar, Purim, which is when you're supposed to deliver baskets of cookies and candy and other things to friends and family. It's not so much a part of Hanukkah, but I think that it's something that, again, that we've incorporated the American culture around, you know, Christmas cookies and Christmas gifts as being something. So yeah, sometimes, sure, you know, maybe you'll share things, but certainly there's no need to drop anything off for anybody. You know, it's a more casual, I would say while I would say it's a less big deal than Christmas, and it's only risen in prominence. Like, if it didn't happen, I often wonder about this. If it didn't happen at this time of year, like, would people even know about or think about Hanukkah? Like, maybe not. But that's okay, you know. So it's a very it's just a very casual thing, and
it's a casual thing. And I think I like that it's a casual thing, because again, I feel, you know, being an immigrant myself and, you know, and therefore being a minority, I do realize that, you know, for our children, it is always a lot of grappling. They're grappling with a lot in terms of what's going inside their houses versus whatever is out there.
Right.
And, you know, you don't want to burden them with you know, 100 to-dos or 100 do this or not do, right? Instead, you make it a celebration, as you rightly said, and you bring in these details which engage them, excite them, and then allow for them to share that excitement with their friends outside, regardless of what religion their friends are. It's all about being friends. And
Is that a thing that's often lost about Hanukkah in America, is that it's really about these people who refuse to give up being who they were, at the root of it. So it's about people taking pride in who they were and in their heritage. And to me, that's something that has a lot of resonance. And that's how I want to raise my children. But I would say that it has a reciprocal implication. In other words, this is very important to us as a family and to who we are, being Jewish. By the same token, I'm trying to teach my children the wider implication of that lesson, the idea that it's important for everyone to be able to be proud of who they are and to be able to live the life that they want to live freely. And that's why I'm all the more appreciative of you inviting me to talk to you about this, because you're someone also who takes a lot of pride in your own heritage and in your own background. And I think that we do our children a great service by conveying that to them through not only, our words, but our actions. I think it's wonderful.
True. Thank you so much. And you're right that, each of us, by telling them where they came from, who they are, what they can be. I mean, by understanding who they are, I think they can really explore what they can be in future too. I think that is certainly something to anchor them with. Briefly, I wanted to mention that, the equivalent of latke, we have something in our Indian cuisine too. It's called the pakoda, but the pakoda has a coating. I don't know if you guys coat the potatoes with anything. We guys coat it with what is called besan, which is basically gram flour. So it is a chickpea flour.
Oh, delicious.
So, and with the salt and the spices to go with it, right? And so that's why when my neighbor mentioned latkes on our neighborhood group, I was like, I want some, and she's promised me another batch sometime. But and that also brings me back to the fact that, in all our celebrations, in all our diverse celebrations, there is also a sense of commonality, which is that, we celebrate the joys of family, of being together, and we celebrate it with food over and over again, right? And fried food.
I mean, what could be happier?
What could be happier? I mean, and give me that donut with the syringe. I want that.
Oh, so good. I'm going to send you a picture. We were in Israel maybe a couple of years ago for Hanukkah, and we just could not get over it. It was jaw-dropping.
I can totally see that. Hey, this has been so great, Jordana.
Yes.
I hope to connect with you in the future too on this, which we want to call, I think, and you'll agree, we want to call it an interfaith conversation, live conversation, beautiful conversation, something that I think we'll be proud to share with our communities and our children, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you to you too. All right, then. Happy Hanukkah.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.